Let's look at an interesting quirk of Mexican Spanish grammar, illustrated by the expression "se los dije." Now, in both standard and Mexican Spanish, we have "te lo dije," which I've glossed here as "I told you," or "I told you it." And lo here is singular not only in form, but also in meaning. It refers to something that was said earlier in the conversation. Here's another example. Se lo dije. Now here, se has various possible interpretations. It could be him or her. It could be they. It could be usted. It could be ustedes. This is standard Spanish and Mexican Spanish. Now here's where things get interesting. In standard Spanish, the only interpretation for se los dije is if los is referring to something plural, if multiple things were said. Now that's a possible interpretation in Mexican Spanish as well, but there's another interpretation, very common. In Mexican Spanish, we often add the s here to los, not to indicate that more than one thing was said, but to indicate that the group of listeners is plural. It's they or you plural, ustedes. So that's very common. And your Spanish teacher may consider this a grammatical error, but 10 minutes later, she'll say it herself without realizing it. So I think it's very widespread, and it's something to be aware of. Two more examples. Here's one that I heard on a telenovela. Solo se van a enterar si tú se los dices. And again here, I want to underscore, we have the s on los in this case, not because more than one thing was said. That wasn't the situation. It was to indicate, to remind us that the group of listeners is plural. And this structure is very common with verbs of communication where it's possible to have an indirect and a direct object. And here's one more example. Ya se los conté.